What is the dollar amount I have to confirm with you before I spend it? Is it $50 or $500?
Well, let me tell you.
If my mom disrespects you, is it my job to fix it or is it yours? If our sex life hits a wall for 6 months because of stress or a new baby, what's our plan to stay connected? These aren't just random questions. These are high stakes, real world conversations every couple needs to have before they say I do. So today we're going to dive into a little premarital coaching. We've taken the 13 most triggering topics identified by marriage therapists and we've broken them down into 4 power blocks to help people prepare for marriage that you can talk to your partner about today. So if you're engaged or you've been together for 10 years, use this opportunity to start having a very important conversation today.
Honey, we need to chat.
Hey, girls. Whoa.
Hey, girls.
Hey, girls. Hey, guys. Welcome.
Hey, girls.
Welcome back to another episode of Honey, We Need to Chat. We are the podcast all about the importance of communication in a relationship. So if this is your first time, we just want to welcome you, give you a big welcome to the Honey, We Need to Chat family. I say thank you so much for just joining in and going on this journey with us. We are not your experts. We are your everyday couple. Yep. We are navigating everyday struggles to show you that you can too. So thank you so much for tuning in. I'm really pumped about today's episode, but I think I'm getting sick. I don't know why. Well, no, I do know why. I actually very much know why. We've had 2 sick kids home this week. And you know how I was coughing earlier?
Yeah.
I thought it was because I had some of your sourdough bread stuck in my throat, but it wasn't. I had sick in my throat. Like not. No, that sounds gross. I was sick. I think I'm getting sick.
Right.
I didn't have. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yep. Welcome
back
to you. If
to
you
Honey,
are a
We Need to
regular, welcome back, champ.
We had a marriage-related hot takes episode last week in which we did talk about some stuff that was important to talk about before you get married and planning a wedding. But we thought today we would dive into, if you're looking for a resource of the many resources that you can and should look into while you're getting married, this is one you can listen to. You can sit down and listen to it together. You can sit down as an individual and go through this, but we wanted to bring our coaching elements to it because we are not counselors. So it's not premarital counseling, but it is premarital coaching.
Get coached.
Because I am a coach. So hopefully this is a helpful resource and just kind of summarizes and really pinpoints some of the things that you should chat about specifically before you do get married.
Mm-hmm. But before we get into the serious stuff, let's get into the more serious stuff.
Much more serious.
The Would You Rather segment. Now, I've got this really fancy board, like sound desk board thing here. And last episode I was editing because I would say that, I'm like, we're doing Would You Rathers. I'd press it and would have this funky music, but it didn't go through the recording. So it was just looking at me silently as I was pressing buttons and laughing because I was having a lot of fun. So this is the new segment. The new intro segment to Would You Rather. Ba, 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 ba. It's very similar to that music.
Same exact music.
Yeah.
Just much cooler.
Yeah, way cooler.
All right. Hit me. Hit me with your best shot.
Okay, would you rather have a partner who forgets your name once a week or a partner who remembers every single thing you've ever said and corrects your grammar while you're crying? I just had to have that last bit.
Oh my gosh.
It was too boring otherwise.
The partner who forgets my name once a week.
Oh, I don't know. That was an obvious one, but some of these I just giggle as I'm writing it. I'm like, it's not even a serious would you rather. Yeah. I just want to say it. It's just fun. Yeah, I agree. I don't want to cry. Okay, the next one. Would you? Oh, I like that. I was just like giggling on the inside, just wanting to share it. Would you rather your partner always uses customer service voice when you're in an argument, or your partner only communicates via post-it notes in an argument?
Oh, in an argument.
Yeah.
That's a hard one. I didn't actually know. The customer service voice feels like it'd be so patronizing.
Yeah, but the post-it notes one is like, just talk to me. Like you're trying to hash it out.
Inefficient. I don't know. I think the
one.
customer service, I would just get used to it.
Yeah. Yeah, post-it note would just be, so the customer service, it would be irritating. Post-it note would be irritating in another level.
Yeah.
It would be like patience, and ain't nobody got time for that.
And I feel like everyone has their argue voice. Everyone kind of has a voice that they do go into when they're arguing anyway.
What's my argue voice?
I don't know what your voice is. I know what your tone is, what your vibe is.
What's my vibe?
You just get real, like your eyes get a bit like...
Sensuous.
No. Like the guy from Parks and Rec. What's his name?
Oh, what's his... No, that's not Parks and Rec. That's Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine, sorry.
Yeah. Pimento,
yeah.
Okay, third one. Would you rather your partner always sides with their mum during arguments?
When they're arguing with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or your partner always sides with you, but then narrates exactly how disappointed their mum is going to be with you.
Definitely the second one.
Really?
Yeah, because I'd rather you side with me.
Yeah, I don't know why I was so surprised with that.
So frustrating for you to always side. Always side with my mom or your mom? Either way, it's messed up.
Would you rather your partner always sides with my mum?
So you side with your mum?
I side with my mum.
Yeah, no. You don't have arguments with your mum where that would happen. But
what are you going against my mum?
I love your mum.
Okay, well, that doesn't sound like it.
But if you were more connected to your mum, and we're going to talk about this later, than you were to me.
I know, which is why I put that in. See, I read notes.
Okay. It's
I
like
read the notes.
Sometimes you read the notes.
Yeah. Cool. Is that your final answer?
Yeah.
Okay. Last one. Would you rather your partner always asks, are we having fun yet? Every 30 seconds during a romantic date, or your partner gives you a formal performance review with a PowerPoint presentation every Sunday morning on that week?
Performance of what?
You.
Just life.
Like how you're doing.
Are we having fun yet?
That'd be funny the first
Are we having
time.
fun yet? Are we having fun yet? It just also would change depending on the tone you said it in.
Yeah. Well, no.
Are we having fun yet? Are we having fun yet?
Yeah. The tone would change, but also
timing.
The time. Well, no. How many times you've said it.
And like depending on what's going on.
Yeah.
Because some circumstances.
Yeah. I was going to go to the bathroom. Having fun yet?
No. That's not what I was talking about.
What are you talking about?
If you're having a romantic date.
Yes.
Anyway.
So
all right. Is that all of the...
That's all of them.
Great.
And that's the segment. Dun, 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 dun.
Sometimes when people come to coaching, they say things like, I know what I should do. I just can't actually do it. And most of the time, it's not because they're lazy or even unmotivated. It's because they're stuck in a pattern. The same thought loop, the same emotional reaction, the same situation showing up again and again. After seeing this need over and over, I started building something called the circuit breaker. It's a really simple, personalized reset. You complete a short diagnostic, and I map out the pattern that's actually keeping you stuck and give you one clear, practical move to interrupt it. It's not a huge life overhaul. There's no face-to-face chat or need to jump on an uncomfortable call. It's just one diagnostic done from the comfort of your own home, and you receive a private, individualized, focused shift to help break the loop. If you're feeling like you keep circling the same issue in life, in relationships, or just in your own head, the circuit breaker might be exactly what you need. Find more information about the circuit breaker in the show notes below or on our website at honeyweneedtochat.com. Well, diving right in then, we chatted about all the things that came up for us in premarital counseling. We went through, I think it's 100 questions to ask your partner before you get married. We went through those all the time.
Oh, John Piper.
John Piper.
Yeah.
He's a pastor, I think. Yeah. And then there was a book that we went through as well, which was things to talk about or things to know before you get married. Again, I can link it if we need to. And then we did premarital counseling, but we also just love asking random questions. So this was actually something that we would do on our date nights regularly, even before we actually started this before we were engaged, before we even had kind of a formal plan for our future, because we figured these are the things, and especially because of who we were when we started dating, very intentional, and both of us were ready to be serious about relationships. These are the things that we wanted to know and explore early on. So you don't have to do that early on if it feels uncomfortable to you, but it's also something you're open to discuss these things at any stage, because it helps you to discover where each of you are at. It helps you understand your context, and it helps you prepare and plan for your future, which is really important.
And why should you do it early on is a question that you may ask.
And are you asking me that?
No, I'm going to answer now.
Yeah.
Well, it's because it sets the tone. Okay. So this is something that we always are on repeat. And this is for our newbies that are joining in with us is it sets the tone. So being intentional with your approach, your questions, your growth together, your growth as an individual. all of that plays into the relationship that you're going to have with your partner, with your spouse. So yeah, being intentional from the beginning is going to set the tone for what it will look like in the years to come.
Definitely. And we are not the casual dating with no direction type of people. And we've never been that way in any of the conversations we've had with other people dating as well. It's just kind of not how we go about or think that relationships are the best if they're done that way. So for us, intentionality behind it and knowing and building kind of that teamwork approach or that same side approach from the beginning is really important.
Yeah.
And I don't see many instances of that going bad. I do know that for some people, it doesn't feel as comfortable to have those kind of conversations, but I think that's more of just an experience thing and you can build that comfort. So these things are important. And the other thing to clarify before we dive too far in as well is none of these things make or break a relationship. It's not a matter of do these before you get married. And if you don't have these conversations before you get married, you are messed up. Like you're doomed kind of thing. Like we said in the intro, you could be 10 years into marriage and have these conversations and it would still be enriching. It's not a matter of people that don't have these chats don't work. It's just that when you can have these chats and explore these things early on, it means that when difficult things come up, which they inevitably will because that's life, in the future, you have already kind of started to explore these topics and you kind of have a bit of a framework to go off in order to navigate those rocky times. And we've had this, like we have had a lot of these chats before we even got engaged and then while we were preparing to get married. And then even so, we've still had to come back to these on a regular basis, navigating difficult things that come up. So it hasn't magically made our relationship solid, but it is a really, really helpful foundation. And any conversation and exploration you can do in this way, in a curious and gentle and constructive way, is going to help you in the future. So if you are a seasoned relationship person, don't be disheartened. Keep listening to this episode. These things are good date night chats or good random chats when you're catching up, you're having intentional time with your partner as well. There's so many things. Like I mentioned, there's all the 100 questions and then the book that we went through and then the marriage counseling. And there's like a bunch of things that you can talk about before you get married. But we kind of distilled it down into 4 categories because otherwise this episode would be super, super long and quite boring. And you can break these out. So we'll talk about these 4 categories and then you can keep diving into these questions. And we've actually got a resource on our website as well. So if you want more questions, have a look on there. There's 50 date night questions. It's the same sort of thing. And it just has more questions under these similar topics. So breaking these things down into 4 power blocks is what I've called them. The first one we're going to look at is the operating system of your relationship. So this is the logistics and the lifestyle that goes into your relationship. Think money or career, household roles, lifestyle, location, those kinds of logistics that go into building a life together. There's a researcher called Dr. Alison Damager, I should say, who has done a lot of work on the invisible work that goes on into relationships. And we have done a lot of episodes, a lot of topics on invisible load, mental load, emotional load, social load. Have a look through those episodes for more information on this. But basically, she's looked into the invisible loads or work that goes into relationships and what is at play for couples there. And she's realized that there's a number of different steps that go into invisible load, not just the task itself. So we've got things like the noticing of what needs to be done, the planning of what needs to be done, and the remembering of what needs to be done. And so even in equal marriages, one person is often doing the mental management while the other helps out. So that's a thing we've discussed on here so many times. Mental load. You'll have heard us talk about it. You've probably seen it talked about. You probably have experienced it in some different ways. Meaning there's not always a spoken understanding or a balance in terms of who's carrying the logistical load in a relationship, which is not bad. It's just an important conversation to have so you're aware of what's going on. So there's some questions to explore what might be happening in these categories in your relationship. First one is money. So I said this in the intro. What's the threshold amount? And this was an interesting one. I want you to answer it too. So what is the dollar figure that one of us can spend on something we want before we need to consult the other person?
Well, the dollar figure, are you actually asking me this?
Yeah, I want to know.
Well, that's down to the person. For us, it's $50.
Yeah.
that's the reason I say that so confidently is because that's the figure that we agreed upon.
Discussed already.
So that's our allowance out of our wages. So we can spend on whatever we want. No guilt. We've got $50
save
a
it
week.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can save it. You don't have to use it that week. If you want something bigger, don't spend 1 week, build it up.
Yeah. And we came to that conclusion because we didn't have that.
Yeah.
And because we have been through many a season financially as a family, there have definitely been times, and this is one of them, to be transparent, where we just haven't had extra spending money. And so I brought it up because I was feeling really kind of claustrophobic because there was things that I would like that I didn't feel like I could buy without like feeling guilty for putting the money in there. And so I was like, it'd be really nice to have an agreed upon amount. And it wasn't because Blair was making me feel bad either. It's just because the guilt stuff that
we didn't know, right? Like, so it was the guilt stuff from you, but also was like, oh, can we do that?
Yeah, what works for us.
It made us actually look into our finances. Like, well, what could we do? So there's times when we don't have any allowance because we're just that tight. We need to pay for the bills. And that's the season that we're in. But we know, all right, we get through that. And then this is when we have a certain amount that's in our savings that unlocks that allowance again.
Yeah.
So we set all those rules, and the rules aren't like a controlling thing. It's just helping us with confidence and knowing it's fine. Like that's,
Yeah, and when you don't have the conversation is when it gets confusing. So you may decide to keep your finances separate completely, and then you've got to figure out how that works. So what do you guys do for mortgage or rent? What do you do for bills, and who manages that? Where does it go? How much do you put aside? And what are the expectations on each other? Because we've talked about this as well in episodes, the fear around money and what can become a secret kind of anxiety, fear, or something you're holding back from your partner. Those kinds of things are the things that build and cause rifts, and you don't want that.
We've shared about the allowance thing before, and we had someone write in. Well, I had someone message me and say, I've now implemented that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So it was really cool. They're like, someone else is doing it.
Yeah, it's been really helpful.
Yeah.
It's been really helpful. And not in a controlling way, and not in
It was a freeing way. I'm actually being more intentional or thoughtful through the purchases, because the other thing too, we would just buy stuff sometimes, right?
Yeah,
so really spontaneous, like, oh, let's just get it. And now it makes you think, it's like, well, it's over my budget limit, so I've got to wait, or is that important to me?
Yeah,
it just helps with all those things.
Exactly. That's what I did with my air wrap recently, which I talked about on Instagram, because I really wanted an air wrap, but there was never a chunk of time where there was never a time where I had that chunk of cash available to buy it. And so then was talking to a friend, and she suggested a payment plan. And I was like, oh my gosh, because there's things like Afterpay, and it was within, I figured out how to put it within my limit so that I could pay it off weekly, and it's worked really well. So yeah, it's not a strict thing. It's not to put, and also just to be really clear, these are not things you decide on once and you never come back to.
Oh no, you continue with everything, nearly everything that we're talking about. It's the start of a conversation and then just keep coming back. And again, if you haven't seen our resources on the website, that's a lot of what we're trying to create, right? Is just to help you with conversations to start with, but also conversations to come back to. So you don't have to try and remember, like, oh, which conversations haven't we had for a long time? Again, we're putting resources on our website to help that.
So discuss, what's your threshold amount? What's the dollar figure you can spend without having to ask? Is it something like an allowance? Is there expectations there? All of those questions that unfold when you're looking into finances. Again, there'd be 500 that you could put under there. So the next one is household roles. And this is a really important one because you just don't know what you're expecting. Like when we first had this conversation, I came into our relationship having this subconscious expectation about what it would look like that was so different to yours. And it wasn't until we had that conversation that I realized, oh, actually my expectation was not matching what would realistically be good for me. Like that wouldn't be naturally what works well for me. And so I was really glad that you had prompted that and had a really different idea already, so I didn't have to convince you of it. But because I had much more traditional roles, I guess, in my mind. And I was like, this is probably what will happen. And then you're like, or we both do it. And we just kind of had that conversation. That's what worked for us. So the question you can ask is, who's currently the project manager of our life? So think taxes, social calendar, groceries. And then also, how can we ensure both partners feel like owners of the home, not just helpers?
And with that too, like there needs to be that level of understanding this sort of goes into that mental load, social load sort of conversations we've had before. And just what's important here is that you're just creating the space to have the conversation and check in, right? Like you might not even like settle on the plan, if you want to call it that, from the beginning. That's not the point of this exercise or any of these exercises. It's to really just facilitate the conversation and make sure you're checking in with each other. You don't want to assume that the other person's okay with mental load. It doesn't matter what you think of it. It's really to facilitate that conversation, to check in. How are you going? How are you feeling? How burdened are you right now? Like all those things is really important to take away when you go into this. Don't go in with this isn't real, or that's not a real challenge or struggle. Go in with an attitude of curiosity. How is the other person going?
Yeah. Because regardless of what you think about the thing that they're expressing, they're feeling that thing.
Yeah.
And so if you can't hear the thing because you're so blocked by your opinion of it, then you're going to have another issue. So it's just a matter of keeping that space. I asked for hot takes on our social media after our last week's episode. And one of the ones we got in was a friend of ours saying that mental load conversation is often unbalanced because it only focuses on one type of mental load. Or one type of mental load. And I thought that was a really fascinating observation because we've touched on a lot of different loads in our episodes and we've covered various different ways, but it's true. Like it's not one is the biggest thing, and it is that it really just takes that curiosity in the conversation to hear the partner and be able to express your part and kind of find a way. And it's not going to be even. It's not going to you're not going to get an equal answer. Like it's just no one's going to have a perfect balance of carrying mental load. And honestly, for us, having the conversation has made it fine in a lot of ways. Like there's a few things that I've really needed help when I've expressed it, or same for you. But once we've had that conversation, it's felt better already.
Yeah. Well, like we talk about mental load a lot and social load and all that. It's a ongoing conversation. It's not a once-off conversation. So that's the thing is like sometimes I carry more mental load and I have to ask for help and just bring that to Amy's attention. We're like, even though Amy and I are married, we do a podcast, we worked together for a bit too, for years we've worked together. I still don't know exactly where Amy is at with anything, right? So it's about checking in constantly. Like, how are you feeling right now? Okay, maybe the balance of the load is fine, but the position that you're in, the things that you're going through is making it not fine. Maybe it's a seasonal thing rather than an actual practical thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So facilitating the conversation, checking in, and ongoing conversation.
Yeah. Next one is about career. So if one of us is offered a dream promotion that requires moving to a city the other one hates, how do we decide whose dream takes priority in that season? And that's a really specific question, but it's a good one to think about because we haven't had to worry about work because we've worked from home for so long.
Yeah.
When we first got together, you were working at our church.
No, this is an example. You were going to go to Hawaii.
Yeah, but that was before we were officially dating. But yeah, that's a good example.
Yeah.
So we had to decide what would happen there. And at that stage, it would have been the end. Yeah. So that was an easy answer. But yeah. If an opportunity, and I honestly don't know if I've thought about this much, if an opportunity came up for you to have a job, like a dream job in a place that was completely different, I don't know.
Well, I don't know. My mind goes to, okay, that's the dream job, but my life is more than a job.
Yeah, exactly.
So where does that tie in? So that's where we'll be sort of looking at from my perspective would be, what's my dream job that I've been offered in whatever location? What's your dream job that you've been offered in your whatever location? It's like, cool. All right, that's the jobs. Now, outside of the jobs, what are all the things going to look like? And that would be, for me, the conversation we would have.
Yeah.
But there has to be aligned with both of us, though, right? But yeah, it would be beyond just a career that we'd be talking about. But again, that's our value. Like some people's values are so much career focused.
Yeah. And some people have a really specific career with a really specific location attached to it before they even get together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just an important conversation to have. I think as well, it's about your posture to the future. And we've talked about this so many times. Knowing your 5-year plan, your 10-year plan as a relationship, having that chat so you do have a plan that you're working towards is really important. And then anything that pops up, obviously things go not to plan, but anything that pops up, you can then navigate if you kind of have an idea, a direction for what's going on. But also, when you're in a relationship, you're not just seeking out opportunities for yourself. You're seeking out a future for your family now. So your posture towards things that pop up is important for you to have clarity around as well. All right, last one for this power block of operating system is lifestyle. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is stability, like routine or staying put, versus adventure? So frequency of travel, change, all of those sorts of things for our 10-year plan. So this is an important one for you guys to discuss as a couple, but also explore for yourselves, because as we've done in some of the coaching episodes as well, values and human needs, things that drive you, sometimes you're driven more by change and sometimes you're driven more by routine as individuals. And so it's important to know that before you bring it into your relationship, so you guys can know that together as well.
That's really interesting on this too, though, because you've asked the question on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is stability? So how important is it? But there's another level of this, right? So I could answer that, but then the other question was going to be, but do I do that? And that, like, 'cause I'm thinking about this, like, because we're having this conversation now. You've changed your job. We're having conversations about my job and stuff like that as well. And we're having this big exploration point of what are we needing for ourselves? And that's the thing, is like, I can identify how important it is, but am I putting the things in place to actually do that? And that's for the adventure side of things. I would have to say importance is like an 8 for me, right? Staying put, the importance for me is like a 5 or 6 off the top of my head, right? But am I doing the adventure stuff? Like, if we're looking at this, so like frequency of travel and change, if I was to do that out of 10 for how much am I doing it, it'd be like a 2, you know? And I think that's so important to have that as part of the conversation, because that helps you going into the conversation. So if we're having a conversation of evaluating that and I'm feeling like a bit stuck or a bit lost or whatever else, just importance, just me scaling importance is not going to move me forward.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be, well, what does it actually, if I was to look at what it is now, though, that's also going to impact that conversation.
It also doesn't say how you're doing now. So if you're having this conversation, it's great to know what's important to you, great to know how you're doing now. And that's the same. Same with love languages. That's a similar one. Like, this might be my love language, but I'm feeling it this. So you have to have both sides of the conversation. So yeah, just figure out what is your own personal driver or your own personal value and your partner's, and then how you navigate that as a family. All right, so let's move into block 2. This is called the vault, and this is all about communication and safety. So think about things like conflict or stress, digital and social boundaries. So we have talked about this a lot on the podcast, but the Gottman Institute has the 4 horsemen of relationships. And if you don't know what those are, check out our episodes on them. We've broken them down quite a bit. I'll link the intro one for you. Really helpful concept for navigating relationships. And basically through this research, they have observed thousands of couples and have gotten to the point where they can determine by one factor their rate or their chance of divorce. And that is how they navigate conflict. So contempt, there's 4 horsemen, and I'm not going to dive too much into them. You go and look into what they are, but they're all different ways of communicating or different patterns that you might find coming out in couples as they're navigating conflict. But contempt is the biggest indicator. That's one of the 4 horsemen, the biggest indicator of a relationship in crisis or potential divorce down the track. So that's like things like sarcasm, mockery, and it's the number 1 predictor of divorce. So it's not about that you're fighting, and that's really important. It's not about that you're going through conflict. It's about how you're treating each other when you're going through conflict and how you navigate conflict. And it doesn't matter if you haven't argued, that doesn't magically make you an incredible couple. How you argue is what's going to be the bigger thing. So here are some questions to discuss and dissect this. First, conflict. So when things do get heated, what are our fight animals?
Oh, I want an animal.
Are we tigers? So we need to settle it now, fight it out now, or turtles that need to retreat and process?
I want more different animals.
Yeah, me too.
I think as well, if I looked at this when we first got together, I was tiger and you were definitely turtle. But I think over the years, though, I've become, I go between the two because I'm more learning to be turtle when I need to be turtle. But my natural instinct is to be a tiger.
Yeah. And same for me, but flip. I've started to approach things faster. So have that conversation and figure it out, because also there's another, there's so many different diagnostics you can do, but I think it was Myers-Briggs. One of the elements of it shows how you react. Like it gives you your preferences in normal time. And then it shows you how you react in the opposite. So in a stressful or a crisis situation. And often you switch. And we found that it took us a little while, because if you will be an external processor and you will chat things through and you'll want to talk about it and all of these things, the moment you get stressed or overwhelmed and you're not clear, you shut down.
It's all internal.
Yeah, and internal. Yeah. So I'm like hounding you because I'm like, what's going on? Like, is something wrong? And it's just not Blair's normal temperament. And so when that started to happen, until we figured out what was going on, very confusing.
But that still happens though. You still
happens
ask
all the time.
Like, and I don't mean this in a sarcastic way. Like you'll keep on asking me, like, is everything okay? Is everything okay? I mean, or are you okay? And I'll be like, yeah. But I've got nothing else to share with you yet, because I'm in my head, because I'm trying to work it out. Yeah. Like I'm trying to make sense of it, because I don't know how to communicate it yet. But if it's exciting, if it's an idea, you're going to hear everything about it, like the whole way through. Yeah.
But you've gotten better at saying, I think I'm just feeling,
in my head.
I think I'm just in my head about this. And that's been really helpful. And it's the same in reverse for me. So I'm usually an internal processor. So if it's ideas, planning, whatever, I'll be quite quiet and think through things, try to like wrap my head around it. And then if I'm stressed, I actually need to talk it out. I can't process it inside. And so we found out you wouldn't kind of pry with me when I was stressed, because that's not what's good for you.
Yeah.
And then I would be like, I think I need him to like,
why is he not, does he not care?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. So then again, I've been working on trying to like express what I need to just express things.
With that too, and I would love to do an episode on this actually, because I need to get better at it. I would love to actually revisit this, because that's just sort of been a light bulb moment of like, I don't know how I'm actually going with that. We've definitely done a lot of work on the early days, but I feel like we haven't been as intentional with that for a while. So just in terms of you, and I can't remember what they are, and that's why I want to do an episode on this, but you would actually help me with things to ask you, because I'm like, I don't know what to ask you other than, are you okay? Right. And you're like, that wasn't the right question to ask you, because that wasn't drawing out what was inside. And so that would be cool to do. Yeah. Just to give like actual questions to ask. And they were like, it was like a script, but
I remember it, but not remember it as well.
Yeah. So I'd love to do a deep dive on that. Because that sort of stuff, like a script, I know might sound lame to some, but for me, I want to know, like, I want to support you, and I want to be able to ask you the right questions. I don't like not knowing something. Yeah. Like, I like, if you can tell me, ask me this, I'll be like, sweet. Like, I'm going to do that. Like, that gives me a tool in my belt that I can use.
So practical.
Yeah.
What's really funny about it, though, is your response to me saying, are you okay? Because I can see something wrong, and saying, yeah, I'm fine, when I can see something's wrong, doesn't help. And then my response of you saying, are you okay? And then I'm like, yeah, I'm fine, but I can't even like process until it's like dragged out of me. Doesn't help. So it's really fast. It's not a matter of like, Blair's got to figure out the right questions to ask. Yes. Like
that helps. It helps. It's a tool. Yeah.
But I also had to realize, this is what I'm doing. And
it's not putting it all on to me. That's the conversation. But
that's why there's so many layers. And that's why the more you figure these things out, the better you'll be equipped for. It usually takes us a bit into the time to realize something's going on. And then we're like, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
But anyway, the second part of this question is, what signal can we use to call a timeout before we hit a point of no return? And I think, finding almost like a safe word or something, or a way to express that this is not a stonewalling situation. And when you look into the 4 horsemen more, you'll understand what that means, but we will come back to it, but we can't keep going right now, is really important, so that you've got that pre-established before you're in the emotion of it, and you can come to that when you need to. And we've done that so many times, but we can't keep talking. We need to come back to this. So figuring that little pressure point out for you. Next one is stress support. And I think this is similar to what we've just workshopped. But the question is, when we are both overwhelmed, do we tend to lean into each other or pull apart? And what does effective support look like to us? Is it fixing the problem or sitting in the hole together? And so basically what we just talked about, when we're stressed and overwhelmed, how do we navigate that? What's helpful for us as individuals? How can each of us help cater to the other person. And before you're in that stressful moment, because your brain is in fight or flight and it's very hard to communicate clearly when you're in that, it's good to have these conversations, because when you are in that and you snap because you're overwhelmed and you're in fight or flight, you snap, partner reacts because they're also now in fight or flight, and it just spirals. So the more you can have that pre-context beforehand, the better. So then we're moving on to digital boundaries. So what feels like a betrayal to the vault of us or the security of us? So that's things like venting about each other to families and friends, phone privacy, like do we have access to each other's private communications with people? Porn boundaries, we talked about that in the hot takes episode last week as well. Sexual media consumption, same sort of thing. What is the line for us as a couple? What feels like a betrayal? What feels like a crossing of a boundary? What is safe? What's not? What do we expect from each other? Those kinds of conversations, really important, because again, you might be bringing expectations in that you haven't even explored for yourself. And some of these things it can feel like a non-issue until they're suddenly a very big issue. So unless you've had that conversation, it's really difficult to preempt it and have stuff in place for it. So phone, for example, we've kind of just got, it's not even really a rule so much, but we just have access to each other's stuff. If we wanted access to each other's stuff, we've got access to each other's stuff. There's no like, don't read my things. The only thing that has come up recently that I've realized I'm really uncomfortable with you reading is you reading me talking to ChatGPT.
Oh, really? That's right.
And I've seen, and our son has done it too. He just stands there and reads what I'm typing on chat, and something about it is so vulnerable. And I think it's because I ask the stupidest questions. ChatGPT gets my what's the word? Catastrophic thinking. Yeah. Where I'm trying to act cool, calm, and collected, but I'm like, is this cancer? I think I just don't. Also, I spell horrendously on ChatGPT.
I just don't even care on AI. It's like, you're going to figure it out.
You figure it out. But I have seen some really funny reels recently where it's like pretty much exactly this. One was this morning where the person's like, their partner is saying, can I have a look at your phone? And they just hand it over willingly. Can I have a look at your group chat? Can I hand it over willingly? And then like, can I look at your ChatGPT? And they just throw it out the window and then other people being like, don't delete my browsing history when I die. Delete my ChatGPT history, because it'll be things like, what's 4 + 7? That's, if I'm honest, that's the thing that makes me the most vulnerable. So funny. But yes, realistically, Blair could read anything. He would just get so frustrated, I think, if he did read it. And then the last one on this one is social freedom. What boundaries do we feel are important with the opposite sex? Friendships, for example. How do we handle situations where one person wants to go out and the other just needs to stay at home? And we had a whole episode about the social load just recently, and we talked about this as well. So figuring out your expectations socially, and what you also, I think, projecting that 5-year plan and being like, what's healthy for us? Where do we want to be? Not just what kind of hole are we going to end up falling into, and not pushing ourselves, kind of like what you said with adventure, not getting out of the house kind of thing. What do we want to see our relationship and our individual relationships like? And how can we work towards that? Okay, moving on to block 3. So this is the tribe, the family. So think in-laws, children, parenting, holidays, all those kinds of things that are your little tribe. Dr. Terry Orbich, can't say that name very well, said that successful couples establish a united front. So that means that your primary loyalty shifts from your parents and your family of origin to your partner. And if you don't leave your family of origin emotionally, you can't fully cleave to your spouse. This is also a concept talked about in the Bible, leaving your family and cleaving to your spouse. And you can see this in so many Reddit stories playing out in ways that are not helpful. So some questions to ask in this is, with in-laws, for example, if your family or mine disrespects our boundaries, whose job is it to address it? And how,
did we talk about this in the last episode?
Yeah, actually we had a conversation about this in the last episode. Yeah.
So, because we've had to do this too. If it's my family, I have to deal with it. If it's your family, you deal with it.
Yeah. So that was actually the social load episode where we talked about there's a lot of things that people carry, figuring out what you're okay with carrying. And for me, I was already carrying my family's dynamics and communications. And so it was easier for me if Blair was just not even in a heavy way, just like he's the one that will
even logistics, right?
Yeah.
So it's like
birthday parties.
Yeah, my brother's kids, like I'm managing their their birthdays and everything. I'm tracking that. Like, that's not Amy. You're managing your kids, your siblings' kids' birthdays and stuff like that. I'm not tracking that. It's just, we're just sharing it.
Exactly. And I think that will look different for whatever couple and whatever. There's no right or wrong or anything in that. But the boundaries thing is, we also talked about in the hot takes last week, where you were saying how there's been times where you've had to have hard conversations with my family and embrace them like like your family.
Yeah.
And that was really helpful for me, because I didn't have to be the in-between of like, Blair's feeling this and my family's feeling this, and how do I do that?
Yeah.
He's taken it upon himself, like, this is now my family and I'm going to have these conversations if I need to.
No, and disclaimer, like, I haven't always done that the best. You know, like, sometimes I've got frustrated over something and I try and deal with it, and it just doesn't have, you know, I guess I just get heated or whatever. But like, I think that the challenge that I had for myself though is like, I'd rather do that and then say sorry and work backwards rather than avoid it completely, because then I'm not stepping into that spot, and it is putting more on you to then deal with.
Yeah. And I just think that's conflict in general. Like,
no,
people,
for sure.
you learn, like, you don't even learn, and then you've learned. You learn and then you go back and you learn and you go back.
Yeah.
And that's just how you navigate those things. So how will you navigate that? If there's a disrespect of boundaries, is there communication needs to be happened? Who's going to do that for what side of the family? And how do you expect that's going to look like? How do you handle a situation if one of us thinks the family is fine and the other feels hurt? And this is that whole not leaving your partner out to dry just because they're upset about something, even though you don't see the importance of it. Recognizing when you mesh two different family cultures, regardless of how similar they are, regardless of how similar their history is and where they came from, what country they grew up in, what kind of family they grew up in, there will be complications. It is complicated. That's the most complicated part of getting married, I would say. And so just, you're not always going to see eye to eye on what's important or what's not, but being that team, do not agree with your mum every time you have an argument in the would you rather question.
Yeah, don't do that.
Opposed to your partner. That's probably not going to work out well. So how do you handle that if one partner is upset and the other's not? Next one is parenting. So what is one specific parenting habit from your childhood that you're determined to repeat and one you're terrified of repeating? This is a really good question.
It was such a big question for us coming into as parents. Is like, what sort of parents do we want to be? All the fears that come into that, you know, and all the fears of even being a parent, of all the mistakes you make and everything too. So important to keep checking in with each other. How are you going with that? You know, or where do you want to be? Like you said, in 10 years, like, what's the sort of parent you want to be? What's the family culture you want to have? What things are you putting in place now to actually get there? You know, probably the most difficult thing in my life has been being a parent, and the expectations I have on myself and my family, and how you can't meet them. It's huge.
And I think the idea of finding things that you're determined to repeat, or in other words, things you appreciate about your upbringing, is really important for your brain to be stretching that way, because it's often really easy to just see the things we don't like or the things we don't want to repeat. That can sometimes be situationally very difficult to think outside of. But if you can continue to search for good, it helps you feel more. It just helps you in every way. It helps you physically and emotionally and everything. So have that conversation. Holidays. How do we handle the guilt trip? Holidays. How do we handle the guilt trip when both families expect us for the holidays? Do we alternate, or is it time to start our own family traditions that belong only to us? And again, every couple is going to navigate this in their own unique way. We've got a way that works so well for our family now. Like, for us, ideally, it's worked out really well on both sides. But not everyone has that. I know people who cannot figure out a way to make it work on both sides every year for Christmas, for example. And so they've just had to alternate years completely, or they never see one side of their family at Christmas. Like, whatever works for you guys, you need to figure this out. And it's easier to do it when it's not Christmas time or not big holiday expectation time. And then building your own family traditions. That's also a teething process, but an important one too. And the last one here is, when people look at our tribe in 20 years, what is the core value they would say defines our family? What's the legacy that your family is leaving? What's the vision statement for your family? And I love that. That's something we try and bring into our family. We do it more for our marriage, and then we're bringing it into parenting as well. Like, what does our family stand for? What do people know? What will people know our family for?
Yeah.
What will our kids know is our values. That's a really interesting one too, because it's one thing to say this is our values. It's a whole other thing to live it out. All right. And we're moving into the last block. So this is the soul. So intimacy, faith, and grit. Think sex and intimacy, faith and worldview, health and commitment. So Dr. Emily Nagoski looked into responsive desire. And she said that spontaneous desire is a common at the start, but responsive desire, which is arousal that grows after physical or emotional connection begins, is the long-term norm. So intimacy requires an intentional yes rather than waiting for a lightning bolt of desire. And I've just thrown these little pieces of research in for each category because I think, for one thing, it's helpful, but two, it kind of helps normalize some of these things. So this is basically saying that at the beginning, just like immediate kind of desire for each other, attraction for each other, that sort of thing, passion, the honeymoon period, some people call it, that is easy. And then as you develop and you grow into relationships, it actually becomes responsive desire. So that's after physical and emotional connection begins and while physical and emotional connection is maintained. And that is what relationships morph into and is the long-term norm. And so if you're constantly thinking something's wrong because it's not what it was at the beginning, you're going to end up finding yourself exhausted and probably feeling like something's broken when it's not. If you're not paying attention to what is required for long-term desire, so things like physical and emotional connection and all the things that go into making you feel physically or emotionally disconnected, if you're not paying attention to and being intentional with that, then you'll find yourself with the long-term desire that happens in relationship maybe not being as healthy and strong as it can be. So these are some questions to ask under this block called the soul. First one is about intimacy. So how do we define sex and intimacy? And is it only one thing or is it a spectrum? So we had this conversation with Sheila Gregoire on our episode. Again, I'll link it in. And she was talking about what we kind of as a culture define as intimacy, and that's actually caused a little bit of an issue because that one thing is not the full picture of what intimacy looks like. But it's an inflated part of focus when it comes to that. And so again, things feel out of balance if you're not looking at it holistically. So have that conversation. What are your expectations? What is it? What do you define it as? And is it a spectrum or is it a one-off thing? And then also, how do we stay connected during dry seasons like new babies, high stress, or illness? Again, really important because they will come and they're important for you to not find yourself in and then not know how to navigate. Next one is about faith and worldview. So how do our core beliefs shape our daily lives? Really important that you're on the same page with this, that you understand the expectations of this in your partner before you're committing to a life with them. What happens to us if one of our beliefs or spiritual frameworks shifts significantly in 10 years? Again, a conversation you need to have before you're committing to each other. These are, for some people, these won't feel like important conversations, although I would argue they are, regardless of what your worldview is. But for some people, these are the foundational part of their lives. So for us, for example, our faith is the most foundational part of our lives. And so it was incredibly important for us to be on the same page. That doesn't mean that we have only rigidity and no flexibility if we're navigating difficult times, which we have. And we work through that together. But it was that was the most important piece, I would argue, for us to establish at the beginning.
Yeah.
To know we were on the same page and we were aiming for the same thing.
Yeah.
And we valued the same thing in that place. So health, if one of us faces a major physical or mental health challenge, what does showing up look like to us? So what does that mean as a partner supporting your partner? And we had to go through this in your burnout. And then what does that mean as the partner navigating it? We went through this again in your burnout. And we've gone through it multiple times since in different ways. But I had a responsibility as your partner to support you in the way that was going to help you. And you had a responsibility as a partner to navigate it in a way that was going to work.
And that's not a cookie cutter approach either. Not in terms of how we do it and you do it. It's even how we do it through the different seasons, right? So I've had other mental health challenges and they change. Like it's not the same. It's not just like for this situation, it's not a checklist.
This is the answer. Yeah.
That's not a checklist. That's a conversation. That's a journey together.
Yeah.
When we're talking about helping you process stuff, you know, and it's in your head and questions like that can be part of a checklist. Like that, the checklist can help with that. In this area, not always. You know, there might be other areas too, though, like in terms of how we go. So if you're looking at physical health, right? How I get motivated to work on my physical health is very different. Very different to the way that you navigate through your
health.
Your growth of health.
In fact, it's like it disables and motivates, like on the flip side.
So my way motivates me. If I did that for you, it would disable you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly. The other part of this is, what are our honest fears about being a caregiver or being the one cared for? That's a really interesting conversation to have. And I don't know that we've had that blatant conversation. We've definitely spoken about the challenges of being cared for and being a caregiver. Yeah, and it's a good one to have that conversation again when you're not in it, because then it doesn't carry the weight of like, you're doing this to me now, or I feel bad about doing this to you right now in this very moment. And the last one here is deal breakers. So what does loyalty while apart look like in the small things? So how do we speak about each other? And we've mentioned that on the podcast a lot. Like we have an expectation that we're going to respect each other and not pretend like everything's fine when it's not. Like we'll talk to the people that we trust about what we need to talk to with
in a way that's honoring.
With the approach of being stronger.
Yeah.
But
it's
what
a growth mindset, it's not a venting mindset.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I don't go to my friends to vent about Amy. I would never ever vent to them about Amy. If I go to my friends about anything, it'd be like, this is a challenge that we have and this is where I'm stuck.
Yeah.
So it'd be more about my things and how I can navigate a situation rather than this is what Amy's done. This is the stuff that she's doing. How can I make her better? It's always a me approach, not an Amy approach.
And I've heard on Reddit multiple stories of people discovering their partner saying some really venti things.
That's going to be so unsafe.
Yeah.
Like, if I knew you did that, that would change everything. For you to not be safe to me would be... It would feel incredibly... It would suck so much.
It'd be like when you find out someone's been lying, kind of that kind of like betrayal. And I think it can really easily be thrown into this like, oh, it's just our little culture in the little chat or whatever. But that's just not, you need to have that conversation because that hurts. And then also beyond infidelity, what behavior would make you feel like the core of our marriage has been lost? If beyond infidelity is like the more universally accepted, this is a real huge hit to our relationship right now, what else fits in there? What is something that would be for you a deal breaker, I guess? Or I don't really like the term deal breaker because I think that's a bit black and white and we've got a different view of relationships. But like, what would be the massive red flags for you? All right, guys, these are some questions. As I said, each of these 4 blocks would have 7 million questions you could ask underneath them. These are not the full questions, but if you're preparing for marriage, if you're building a relationship, if you've been in a relationship for 10 years and you're wanting to continue to strengthen it, have these conversations. Sit down and listen to this episode as an individual and ask yourself these questions, or sit down as a couple and ask these questions, which is even better if you're in that place where you can have these conversations. The reflection is the powerful point of this, is you're having intentional time to reflect on things and help your brain kind of workshop what might be to come, not in like a doom and gloom kind of way, not in trying to make you feel like relationships are horrible and hard all the time. It's just to prepare you so that when those things do come and life does throw you things that are unexpected, you've got this foundation in place that will help.
Well, thank you so much, guys, for listening in today and just being a part of this and going on this journey with us. Like, honestly, it's so amazing to have that. And, we believe in you. We believe in what you can do for yourself and for your family. And so, if you need that help and support, make sure you get in contact with us. We'd love to support you in any way we can. And also, again, Amy's got a lot of resources that are available to you to help you through your stuff so we can all grow together.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Good chat.
Thanks.